Welcome to step 3 of this 7-step guide to self-hypnosis. If you're watching this, I'm hoping you've already watched and spent some time practicing steps 1 and 2. If not, go into the channel and check out those videos and give them some time, because I really think of step 1, where you learn to stop, and step 2, we learn to sit and essentially let go of a whole bunch of activities and just sit in stillness, as stillness are really, of key importance, and as I keep saying, are often enough. With this third step, we are going to sense. That's the name I give to this step. We're going to practice sensing, allowing our attention to roam in a active, engaged, yet non-judgmental way around our experience, particularly our inner experience. Dr. Stephen Hayes, who amongst other things is renowned as being the creator of acceptance and commitment therapy, was involved. He's a psychologist. He was involved in a huge project. He led a massive project to identify the most influential factors in improving mental health. So essentially, the places where we might best pay attention, or skills we may cultivate, that kind of thing, if we are to improve our mental health and get the most out of a therapeutic exchange. He and his team combed through over 54,000 studies and found that 2 particular skills were overwhelmingly effective in the therapeutic process. And I'm going to share one of those with you now. It sounds so simple, and yet it's so important. And this is the ability to pay attentive, non-judgmental attention to one's inner experiences. Attentive, non-judgmental attention to one's inner experiences. That is really the skill that I'm looking to cultivate with this step. It's the attitude I'm looking to adopt. Sensing isn't a passive act. It's an engaged reaching out of our attention. I never forget a few years ago when someone shared the root of the word attention, suggesting there were 2 parts to it. And essentially, if you look at its etymology, attention means to reach toward. Think of it unfurling or uncurling from its source and reaching out toward things that call out for attention, or that you wish to pay attention to. Your attention can reach out toward the most obvious elements of your experience, and just as readily, just as quickly, reach to the most subtle inner experiences. The merest hint of a feeling, a hunch, an inner feeling like that. So in this step, we're choosing to direct our attention toward essentially ourselves and our experience. It's not really a reaching inward, although sometimes just the conventions of language, I may say things like your inner experience or, going inside. But essentially, it's just effortless. It's already there the very moment your attention, is shone upon something. Many of us have turned distraction into something of a habit. We might find distraction in technology, smartphones. We might find it in food. We may find it in any host of activities, substances, experiences. Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes this distraction serves to avoid, or perhaps in some cases, at least appear to numb uncomfortable feelings and thoughts that we don't want to have. If we were asked about that feeling, that anxiety, that pain, that intrusive thought, we may well say, well, I of course I don't want to have those thoughts and feelings, and to distract myself, it helps to put my attention elsewhere. But often these things persist. Again, it's as if they are demanding our attention, and in not getting it, become more persistent, perhaps a little louder, encouraging us to distract ourselves even more or more frequently. And we can get caught in a cycle here of discomfort and avoidance. Rather than feeding into this cycle, we're going to essentially pivot. We are going to choose to do something different. And we're going to begin by just turning our attention toward a quite innocuous feeling in the body. When this skill is properly cultivated, of course, you find the courage to do so, you can begin to turn it toward things that were causing you discomfort, toward your experience of pain, toward your experience of boredom, toward the experience of agitation, distance, lack, whatever it is that you're trying so hard to avoid. We adopt an attitude of being curious, of being interested, of actually wanting to examine what it is that's there. I know on TV these days, programs about crime scene investigation are very popular, and they often contain some quite dark scenes, when a body's recovered from a crime and an autopsy needs to be done. Often the depictions of those doing the autopsy are of people who are, deeply interested, fascinated with their work. They're curious to find the clues, if you like, that are hidden in the body that most of us may miss. And this requires them to adopt and cultivate this attitude, of course, of curiosity, to look at things that, I'm guessing before their training, were something that they'd rather not look at. For most of us, it's something we'd wish to turn away from. So again, it's this turning toward that we're trying to cultivate. I'm reminded of the wonderful story, I'm sure some of you have heard it, of JBS Haldane, John Burdon Sanderson Haldane, who was a British Indian scientist, and he worked in physiology, genetics, evolutionary biology. He was one of the founders of neo-Darwinism. He served in the Great War. He taught biology at the University of Cambridge and was an incredibly smart academic and innovator in the world of biology. And he was one of the first learned scientists of his day to look down through a powerful microscope and, diving into life essentially at a subcellular level. It's said that upon doing this for the first time, or when he was first wowed by this experience, he remarked, "Now, my own suspicion is that the universe is not only queerer than we suppose, but queerer than we can suppose." You will find the same thing when you stop, sit, and sense your own experience. When you zoom in to your pain, your boredom, your agitation, your thought. When we try and find out what's actually there, what's there in the absence of memory? What is there when there's no story or meaning attached? Zoom in. What's there? That's what we're going to find out. So let's use your current experience to do this. And what I'd like to use is the sensation of your feet on the floor, or wherever let's say wherever your foot is resting. Let's just use one of your feet, whichever one you choose. And allow your attention to reach toward that foot. It's a familiar sensation. But how often do you really pay attention to it? Close your eyes for me. Just keep them closed for a moment. And allow your attention to reach toward the experience of that foot. And try to describe the feeling. If you had to describe the sensations, is it heavy or light? What's the texture like? Can you feel individual toes? Now, without moving your foot, can you move your attention to individual toes? Can you sense a clear distinction between one toe and another? Again, just focused on the sensations. Although you may imagine a foot, a picture of a foot, it's just an imagined picture. So even let go of the picture and imagine there were just sensations. If those sensations had a color, what color would it be? Again, just by diving into a very ordinary sensation, you're practicing the skill of sensing, which later you can apply to more complex emotional experiences. Open your eyes if you haven't already. By doing what we just did, you're moving. It's not even that you're moving closer to your feelings, but you're no longer avoiding your feelings, no longer distracting them. You are allowing them to be um, the light of your attention to fall upon them. You're embracing them. You're saying yes to them. You're surrendering to them, allowing them to do their thing, being willing to have them. And this can often lead quite naturally to a sense of spaciousness, a sense of expansion, if you will. Again, if you stop, just put everything down, you let go of the past, the future, the present, the need to figure it out, the need to change anything, then you can rest. And as you rest, you can peer down the microscope at those sensations. You can be willing to have the thought, have the feeling. And you can begin to ask questions of it. What is its extent? Can that, how intense is that sensation compared to a headache? Is it just a signal? Again, without any story, how intense is it? Can that feeling actually shape the future? Can that feeling cause damage? Are you that feeling? So again, we can begin to shine this light upon feelings of fear, discomfort, the spike of whatever it is that would make us retract from certain experiences, perhaps. This is about genuinely saying yes to these feelings. Go on, show yourself. And there may be times when the situation or the feelings are intense. Often they're not as intense as our behavior would suggest. But even when they're intense, again, just come back to the check-in. Because often what's making them intense is that we're loading them with meaning, we're projecting them out into the future, we're conjuring up a story, we're reverting to memory again. Again, just sit and then go again. Say yes to that feeling. Go on. Again, so we're not trying to figure it out, remember. We're not kind of drive it away. We're not trying to change anything yet. We haven't even got to that. We're nearly halfway through this process. Step 3 of 7. We are recognizing ourselves as being, big enough, courageous enough, spacious enough to say yes to a feeling, yes to a thought, and then to actually approach it with curiosity, honesty, openness. What is it? What's actually there? Again, when we disentangle what it is that we can sense, in any sense, from layers of thought and concept and story and meaning and all the rest of it. When we strip it away and have a more intimate, raw experience, often it's as if we're kind of injecting space into it. And again, it also acts as a reminder that we are that which is observing a feeling, a sensation. We're not a feeling. We are not a sensation. We're not a thought. So we see there's nowhere to go to take our stand as the observer, as the knower of our experience. We don't have to go on a search for ourselves, because there we are, right at the very heart of our experience. In fact, we'd have to be. And we're okay. We are still. We are at peace. Even though there may be clusters of sensations that call out for our attention. So again, practice. Start with a part of the body. I find a really good one is to start with is the experience of your knee. Unless you've got a knee injury, but even if you have a knee injury, that may help. But generally, most of us don't know too much about the experience of our knees. We never really have to pay attention. But if we stop, sit, just become still and pour our attention into our knee, you may find images of your knee or what it looks like come up on your mind, but recognize they're just your imagination. So let be even interested in pictures of your knee or memories of your knee. What is the actual experience? Maybe a very spacious experience already. It may be that there are clusters of sensations or temperature or texture. What's there? If you were to imagine that your knee is completely transparent, that your body is just, transparent, what's left? Cultivate this skill of sensing, and then be brave about this, courageous. Sense what it is that you've been calling a problem and tell me what's there. Tell me what you find.